if you look at Birmingham City, after we drew against Northampton, every game after that we scored 2 goals. Every game. And that's about 6 games. We've drawn, so we scored. So I've gone for 2. That's okay. So I've gone for 2 for Birmingham, and Crawley, as you said, they're in decent form. So in the last 6 games, they've, as you mentioned, they've drawn 3, won 2, and lost their last game. So they're not a bad side in terms of their ability to be able to pick up points and score.
So welcome back to BCFC Royal Blue, and we're back today with another score prediction video. And myself and Dad like to do these as often as we can. It's just a little bit of fun between us as we go through this season. We talk about the fixtures, we talk about what results we think are going to happen, and we keep a rolling tally. And we don't discuss our outcomes and results before the podcast. So Dad, I think I'm doing okay in recent weeks. So do you want to give us a recap of where we are?
I think I'm doing okay. You're doing, you know, for a fact you're doing very well. So a few weeks ago, I was 21 points, I think, ahead. But over the last few weeks, you started to claw it back, and you had a good week in the last round of fixtures. So you got 10 points, and I only got 5. So the running totals at the moment are you have 116. And I have 125, so I'm only 9 points ahead now. So it's getting closer. So you've definitely clawed it back. So it does make it interesting going to this game week.
I'd like to say that it's pretty embarrassing just getting up to Christmas. I've only just got my first blue score right. That's pretty bad, isn't it? But you know what? I'll take it. And we'll move on to this week then. So first fixture I've got on my list, Dad, is Cambridge United at home to Huddersfield.
Yeah, so as we know, Cambridge are struggling near the bottom of the table. They're third bottom, and Huddersfield are 4th from top. So it's, on paper you think this is going to be quite an easy away victory. However, Cambridge in their last game had a 2-2 draw at Wrexham. They're only the second team to take any points off Wrexham at home. The only other team was the team that they're playing, which is Huddersfield. So they'll be buoyed by that, and they're back at home again against a Huddersfield side who are in really good form. They, in the last 10 games, they've won 7, drawn 3. They drew their last game, actually, at Lincoln. They were 2-0 down.
They were.
And came back to 2-2. So I think this will be a closer game than what people think. But I do think Huddersfield will still win it. So I've gone for Cambridge 1, Huddersfield 2.
I've gone exactly the same. That's a strange start. We never normally get the first fixture right. I've gone exactly the same for a lot of the reasons you mentioned, Dad. Because Cambridge, even though they're having a poor season, if you look at their games, they score some goals. Yeah. They're capable of putting the ball in the net. I think it's defensively where they're really struggling, aren't they?
Yeah.
A bit like Peterborough, score a lot of goals, but they also leak a lot of goals as well. Bolton, that sort of theme.
Yeah.
And I think, as you say, Huddersfield are going to be too strong for them, and I've gone for 2-1 Huddersfield as well.
Okay, so we both agree on that. So next game, Matt, again on paper, looks like a really good game. Is Stockport against Peterborough?
So Stockport took me by surprise this week, and they lost 2-1 to Stevenage.
Stevenage beat some of the good teams, Stevenage. They're a team to be weary of when we play them.
They're a hard team to predict, aren't they? Because they have some really odd results, and then they go and beat Stockport 2-1. But Stockport are in pretty good form, actually. In their last 6 games, they've won 4 and lost 2. Obviously, one of those being against us, and the other one being against Stevenage this weekend. So over the course of that, not bad form, really. And Peterborough were in a very classic Peterborough game this weekend. Peterborough 4, Crawley Town 3. What doesn't scream Peterborough than a 4-3? So they're a very sort of Peterborough game. But they've been really underwhelming for me this year. And Poku's out until March. He's one of their key players. A lot of goals coming through him. I think Stockport will be too good for these at home. But I do think they'll score Peterborough. So I've gone for Stockport 3, Peterborough 1.
I've gone very close. I thought you were going to say the same score as me there. Let me just put that into my spreadsheet. Yeah, I mean, Stockport have got a good home record, actually. They've won 6, drawn 2 and lost 2. And Peterborough's away record is not great. They've won 2, drawn 1 and lost 5. But like you say, with Peterborough, there's always goals. They've got no problem scoring goals. So that may slow down a little bit, although it didn't against Crawley with the omission of Poku. But Stockport, again, I think because they're at home and they're challenging for the place, they're in 5th place at the time of recording. I've gone for Stockport 3, Peterborough 2.
Ooh,
so that's
again,
just one
again,
goal.
A one-goal swing again.
Yeah, it's interesting that we're close.
It's going to be nerve-wracking if it's 3-1 in the 89th minute. You're going to be screaming for a goal.
Do you know what, Matt? I had a few results that I got right, and then there was late goals, and it completely skewed me. But that's the way it goes, isn't it?
I saw Wickham 3. 1 up.
That's what I predicted.
And then they scored. I'm like, yes! I was like, I saw them go 4-1 up.
Yeah.
But okay then, so that brings us on to Wickham at home to Bolton.
Wycombe at home again. I mean, they're flying, aren't they? They've, won so many games. They drew, in fact, of the last 3 games, they've drawn 2, and then they won their last game away at Shrewsbury. Top of the league. They're the only team currently above us. Bolton had a surprise result. I felt that they lost, didn't they, at home to... Did they lose to the weekend? Wigan, yeah, and I nobody really saw that because of them being at home. I've gone because Wycombe again are at home and they're doing so well. Bolton are unpredictable. I've gone for Wycombe 2, Bolton 1.
Very close to me again, but I've gone for a draw. I actually think Bolton are going to get a point here because they're unpredictable.
Yeah.
And because now we're going to hit a big run of fixtures. I don't know. I've just got a feeling there's going to be a draw on the cards here. I've gone for Wycombe 2, Bolton 2.
2-2, that's an interesting result. Okay. Next map, we've got Bristol Rovers, who we saw in our last fixture at home to Wrexham.
Yeah, and I've got to admit, Dad, Bristol Rovers were particularly disappointing for me. We said at the end of it, we felt really sorry for their fans having to travel to watch that, didn't we? There was a real lack of passion, gaps all over the pitch, just a really disappointed and disjointed performance from Bristol. And Wrexham dropped points this weekend as well. They conceded a penalty in the 88th, 89th minutes to Cambridge.
Yeah.
They're going to be kicking themselves about that because they're going to want to see Cambridge obviously as a must-win game. I think Bristol Rovers are going to be in a little bit of trouble this season. I could see them climbing down, getting closer to the relegation spots.
Well, they're only one place above it at the moment.
Exactly. And just going off, because we're approaching the halfway mark of the season now, so we've seen pretty much the majority of teams, haven't we now, Dad? And I think Bristol Rovers are down there, sadly, with his lowest standard. Yeah. So I think Wrexham are going to continue with their good form here. And I've gone for Bristol Rovers 0, Wrexham 2.
That's exactly what I've put. I've got exactly the same score. I think the Wrexham Cambridge result was a real surprise. But then people would argue that the Birmingham Northampton result was exactly the same. We was expected to beat Northampton at home, we didn't, and Wrexham were expected to beat Cambridge that they didn't, and they were strong at home. Wrexham's away form is not as good as their home form. They've won 3, drawn 3, and lost 3. Of their 9 games. But this is against Bristol Rovers, like you said, based upon the performance I saw from Bristol Rovers in our last game, I can't see them winning this, so that's why I've gone for 2-0 as well.
Yeah, okay, so that brings us on to our next game, and that's Lincoln City at home to Reading.
Well, Lincoln on a terrible run of form. In their last 10 games, they've lost 4, drawn 4, and won 2. But actually, in their last 7 games, they haven't won. And we saw them, we beat them, didn't we, at Lincoln a few months ago, and they looked okay. But they are at home against the Reading team that have changed their manager. And they lost, didn't they, 3-0 at home to, who did they lose to? They lost Blackpool.
Yeah. That really surprised me, actually.
Yeah, and maybe it's the new manager's got or trying to get them to play slightly different. I don't know. Maybe Reading fans can tell us this. But I've gone because of Lincoln being at home, even though that they haven't won in. I think they'll turn it around here. So I've gone for Lincoln 2, Reading 0.
Again, very, very close. I've gone for a Lincoln win, Dad, and I think they're going to turn it around. But I think it's going to be a smaller margin. I've gone for Lincoln City 1, Reading 0.
1-0.
For a lot of the reasons you've just listed. And I think Sellers going from Reading over the course of this season, you're going to see them drop more and more points because he was the glue that held them all together.
It's a good manager, isn't he?
He was a good manager. Yeah. I mean, I'd move going to Hull, I think. I mean, he's earned his higher level promotion, if you want to call it that, but is it a promotion going to Hull? I'm not too sure.
I think when you have and obviously what Reading have done, they brought in Noel Hunt, who's an ex-player there, and I think you might see a couple of weeks or months of disruption there. I think that Reading will be fine, but I think that's going to affect them.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, next map, we've got Barnsley against Leyton Orient.
Well, thank you, Barnsley, because they were one of my exact scores against Exeter. Yeah. I predicted Exeter 1, Barnsley 2, so that got me 3 points. They needed that win as well. They've been in poor form. And Leyton Orient drew with Burton this weekend, which they'll be disappointed with because Burton are down there. Again, they're going to want to see that as a win game. Leyton Orient are an odd team, aren't they, Dad? They have these really really big wins, and then they go and draw to Burton. They're really unpredictable, but that's the nature of football, isn't it? It's all that unpredictability. I think that Barnsley in their last 6 games, Dad, they've won 1, drew 2, and lost 3. But their home form is actually quite a bit worse than their away, which is interesting. But saying that, I still think they're going to be too strong for Orient here. So I've gone for Barnsley 2, Leyton Orient 0.
2-0?
2-0. Okay.
We saw Barnsley a few weeks ago when we beat them at their place in that awful weather. It was just Storm Dara, wasn't it? So it's hard to judge. But they are and actually their win against Exeter was their first in 7 games. obviously after a run of losses and draws. But they're still in seventh place, just below them playoff positions, just 1 point off the playoffs against an Orient team that were improving, and I expected them to beat Burton because they'd won their previous 2 games. But I've gone for a draw here. I've gone for Barnsley 1, Orient 1.
Okay, a draw.
Yep.
Nice. So that brings on to our next fixture, Dad, and that's Blackpool at home to Stevenage.
Blackpool seem to have phases, don't they? They win loads in a row, then they lose or draw loads in a row. Now they're on a current winning streak. In fact, actually, they've won their last 3 games and shot them up to 10th in the table. So they seem to have got their momentum back. I mean, we saw them in the Cup, I think, when we beat them, which was, it's hard to judge, isn't it, in the Cup because of the amount of changes. But they're on a winning momentum at the moment, winning 3 in a row against a Stevenage side who, get some really sort of decent results, don't they?
They beat Stockport the weekend.
They did, and they're also over the season. If I can't remember, but I remember looking at them earlier in the season. They've beaten them, and they've beaten them, so they've got the ability to do that. I just think because of Blackpool's momentum, I don't think there's going to be an awful lot of goals in this. But I've gone for Blackpool 1, Stevenage 0.
Oh, narrow win.
Yeah.
Okay, so I agree with everything that you've said, but for me, there's something about the way that Stevenage set up. They can do pretty well in big games, and I think they'll see this as a decently big game, Blackpool away. So I've got a draw. I think this will be a draw. I think it'll be a score draw, though, because Blackpool can score goals, but Stevenage are usually involved in low-scoring games, so I think that's going to neutralise that. So I've gone for Blackpool 1, Stevenage 1.
1-1.
1-1.
Okay, yeah. Just one final point on that. They've only scored 3 goals away all season, Stevenage, which is why I went for 0. But but I mean, they've obviously got to at some point score more goals.
They don't score many goals in general.
Yeah,
they're usually a pretty low-scoring team, Stevenage.
Yeah. So next match we've got Burton Albion against Exeter.
So Burton Albion, as we said, they drew to Leyton Orient this weekend, and Exeter are in awful form, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're not doing very well. They started well. In fact, I think it's good for them they started well, because that form has stopped them dropping down the table as drastically as it would have been if they didn't start so strongly. So, but I was a bit disappointed with Exeter. We've played them twice in recent weeks. The cup game I'll take with a pinch of salt because they made 6 changes. It's hard to judge, isn't it, a cup game? But even in the league game, I thought they were poor. Exeter are an odd team because they do try and play football, don't they, Dad? They try and play it from the back. They do try and pass it. But I think you made a really good point in one of our post-match videos. They look like Blues under Rooney last year. The players look a little bit confused, like they don't want to actually play the style of football that they're being asked.
Yeah.
So I've actually gone for a bit of a... I've gone for a draw here, Dad, because I think they're both effectively going to cancel each other out. And I've gone for Burton 1, Exeter 1.
1-1. Okay. Exeter, you say they've, their slide down the table has been stemmed, but they're now in 15th. They're 15th in the table, and they're only 5 points above the relegation zone. So because like you said, their current form is awful. They haven't won in 7 games now. They've in fact they've lost 4 and drawn 2 of the last 6. Against the Burton team, who are already 9 points adrift of safety. But, I look at Burton and I think, well, this for them will be a home game against a really out-of-form team, a type of game they have to win in order to have any chance of accumulating points to get out of this. So I've gone for a home win. I've gone for Burton 2, Exeter 1.
No, close game.
Yeah, close game, but a narrow win for Burton Albion.
I wouldn't be surprised to see that. And there was just something in my gut that was telling me this is going to be a draw. But okay, Dad, so that brings on to our next game. That's Mansfield at home to Rotherham.
Like we've spoken about Exeter, Mansfield. In fact, we played them, a number of months ago, and they haven't won since. They didn't beat us, but they drew with us, and they had a good result against us, and they just not kicked on or won. And in fact, actually, Mansfield now are 11th in the table, and in the last 7 games they've drawn and lost 5 in a row, and they drew their last game. They drew at Charlton, didn't they? Against a Rotherham team who are actually starting to improve a little bit. They've won 3 of the last 5 now, including the last 2. I've gone for, even though because Mansfield are at home, I was pretty impressed with them when I saw them actually at home. They attacked us, but I've gone for a draw. I've gone for Mansfield 2, Rotherham 2.
Okay.
Desmond.
Yeah, so I agree, Dad. Mansfield were the one team that when they got a goal back, they came at us.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the only times this season where I felt like a team have gone, okay, we're actually going to go for this.
Yeah.
Quite impressive to see from a Blues perspective this season. But Rotherham, as you say, they're kind of hitting a little bit of form. They're scoring a few more goals now.
Johnson Clark-Harris is back. I think that's made the massive difference.
Absolutely.
He scored 2 in their latest win.
Definitely makes a massive. When you get a goal score on the pitch, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So I've actually backed a Rotherham win here, and
Okay.
Mansfield are struggling for goals recently. So I've gone for Mansfield 0, Rotherham 2.
0-2. Okay, Matt. So next we have Northampton Town against Charlton.
So these teams are both in exactly the same form. In their last 6 games, they've had 3 losses, 2 draws, and 1 wins. Exactly the same on both sides of the scale. So Charlton, I find an odd team, Dad. We've said this a lot on this podcast, haven't we? You know, they're a difficult team to predict. They don't score many goals. And, you know, they lost to Crawley at home. They drew to Mansfield. They beat us. And then they can't seem to.
Yeah.
I think beating us was arguably one of the worst things for them. They went on a bit of a downward after that, didn't they? Which was very odd. But Northampton, for me, are particularly poor from what I've seen this season. I still think Charlton are going to have way too much quality for them, if I'm honest. And I've gone for Northampton 0, Charlton 2.
0-2.
I've had a couple of 2-0s this weekend. I hope they come in.
Yeah, you have. Yeah. I think this is not a game I'd want to go to. Northampton were poor. I mean, the thing is, we say they're poor, but they managed to draw against us, which sounds weird. But we just let them in, didn't we? In the last kick of the game, which was stupid. But besides that, they weren't very impressive. Charlton. They're an awful form. They beat us, as you mentioned, and then in the next 9 games, they've only won 1. After beating the team top of the league, and everyone thought they were going to go on this amazing run, and they never did. They're struggling in the league as well. But I can't see anything but a 0-0 here.
0-0.
0-0. I can't see. I mean, Charlton don't score many goals. They don't concede many. Northampton at home as well. You know, they don't really sort of score loads, so I've gone for 0-0.
I mean, on paper, Dad, how didn't we see Mansfield at Charlton last weekend 0-0? It had 0-0 written all over it, didn't it? In hindsight, you think to yourself, why didn't I back that?
Yeah.
But anyway, that brings us on to Wigan at home to Shrewsbury.
Shrewsbury, how did we lose to them? How on earth did we lose to Shrewsbury? I mean, in fact, in their last 8 games, they've lost 7 and won 1. The 1 win was against us.
It's mad.
You know, there's lots of reasons for it in terms of the new manager, that we were off form, whatever. We lost to Shrewsbury. I mean, that is like, you know, but they said like you will be in for a shock. That was it. That was our shock, I think. They're away to a Wigan side who are improving, but they can't get any sort of consistency. So in the last 6 games, they've won 3 and lost 3. But actually, in their last 4 games, they've won 3 and lost 1, so they are getting better. I can't see anything but a home win here, but I've only gone for a narrow win. I've gone for Wigan 1, Shrewsbury 0.
Oh, again, very, very similar, just a 1-goal margin, but I'm not going to waste any more time, Dad. You've covered it all with that. I've gone for Wigan 2, Shrewsbury 1.
2-1.
Yeah.
Okay, and then our final match then, Matt, is our Birmingham City on the Monday night, 2 days after everybody else. We're not sort of sour about that. Away to Crawley Town.
I was going to say, because this fixture should be second on the list, but it's not because we're playing on the Monday evening, which is a great one for us fans, isn't it? 8 o'clock on a Monday just before Christmas starts. But yeah, we won't gripe about that scheduling anymore. Yeah. So Blues are now back in excellent form. If you're going to take all competitions, we're 6 wins on the bounce. In the league, it's 4 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw. So again, really good form now with those 4 wins coming back to back. And we beat Bristol Rovers 2-0 at the weekend. Crawley lost 4-3 away at Peterborough, which genuinely did seem like a very good game. You know, when you get 7 goals, it's always going to be entertaining.
Yeah.
And recent form for Crawley, Dad, they've won 2, drew 3, and they've only lost 1.
Yeah.
So lots of draws, fair enough. And I know they have played quite a few of the lower end teams in there, but considering everyone writ off Crawley and put my hands up, including myself at the start of the season, I know they're in the relegation zone, but I think people expected them to be completely cut adrift, didn't they? You know, completely
similar to West Shrewsbury are at the moment.
Exactly that. Yeah. So I think this is going to be a trickier game than some fans are maybe thinking. And they're going to work extremely hard. They're going to battle for absolutely everything. We need to make sure we match that level of physicality. I do think we'll win this. And I think this scoreline is going to be, as I said, hard fought and closer than what we think. But I've gone for Crawley Town 1, Birmingham City 3.
Okay. I have gone for a similar gap. I think that if you look at Birmingham City, after we drew against Northampton, every game after that we scored 2 goals. Every game, and that's about 6 games. We've drawn, so we scored. So I've gone for 2. That's okay. So I've gone for 2 for Birmingham, and Crawley, as you said, they're in decent form. So in the last 6 games, they've, as you mentioned, they've drawn 3, won 2, and lost their last game. So they're not a bad side in terms of their ability to be able to pick up points and score. I've gone, but I think that the way that our defence is now, the way that Chris Davis has changed things. I think that it is going to be a reasonably close game. It's a tight little stadium as well, so that it's going to be a different type of atmosphere. But we're used to playing in that now because we've played in some smaller grounds. I've gone for Crawley Town 0, Birmingham City 2.
Another 2-0.
2-0.
Yeah, I've just got a feeling we are significantly better at the back, especially with the Ben Davies and the Bielek at right back, all these different changes that Chris Davies has made. I just got a feeling we're going to do like a set piece. There's going to be a set piece where a header goes in, or there'll be a free kick, or maybe a long ball. I can feel them having a goal in them at home. But yeah, as you say, that same margin, a win for Blues by 2 goals.
Yeah.
And as I said, it doesn't matter for us, does it? As long as we get 3 points and get this momentum for this Christmas period, we'll be happy, won't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Anything else, or should we close the video there?
No, that's I think there's some interesting fixtures there. We need to keep the momentum going. By the time we play, everybody else would have played, so it's quite possible that teams around us would have picked up points. So I just think we need to see this fixture as always as a must-win and just keep the momentum going.
Yeah, hopefully, so we can bring back those 3 points. But as always, Birmingham City supporters, we'd love to hear from you. Please let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you're a fan of another club, we respect and welcome all opinions here. So if you've seen your club pop up and you want to challenge us or give an opinion of yourself, please let us know in the comment section below what your score predictions are for this weekend. If you like this video specifically, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up. And don't forget to check us out on our social media channels. We have an X page, we have an Instagram page, and we're also over on Spotify now as well. And if you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and press that bell notification so you get notified every time we post a video. And myself and Dad will see you on the next video all about Birmingham City.